Welcome to the Rotary Club of York. We are a people of action committed to service above self and honoring the four-way test. If you haven't already done so, please silence your cell phones. Cal Weary will lead us in our opening song, God Bless America, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Past President Gordon Fryrook will offer the invocation, and Todd Fogdall will introduce our visitors.
Rotarians, join me. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
They put me on the wrong side of the railing. Turning 100 is a milestone for a human and a business. Today, we celebrate North Metal and Chemical Company on its centennial year. The Bible reminds us that age is to be respected and revered. In fact, Proverbs 16:31 states, "Gray hair is a crown of glory, is attained by the way of righteousness." Join me in this brief meditation. We ask your blessing on those who have aged gracefully and righteously. Continue to find favor with them and provide them with future years to serve you and mankind. Amen.
Good afternoon, Rotarians. It is my pleasure to have the honor of introducing our guests for today's meeting. We have a wonderful and lengthy list of guests. So to our guests, when I call your name, we ask you to please stand and to remain standing until President Jackie has had a chance to welcome you. I am pleased to welcome Judy Spiegel, guest of past President Di Hershey. Ruth Fay, guest of past President Fred Fay. Also a guest of past President Fred Fay, Mr. Bill Baker. Suzanne Smith, guest of past President Mike King. John Langle, guest of Austin Schenck. The following are guests of our speaker today, Jeff Hammel. That would include Bob Hunter, Dave Fitzgerald, Heather Pritchard, Scott Ashbrenner, Terry Hammel, Stacy Hammel, Alex Hammel, Nate Hammel, Wendy Lynham, John Lynham, Martin Weiss, Michelle Weiss, Tim Ward, and Maggie Barrage and Thomas Barrage. And if there are any guests that I missed, we ask you to stand as well.
It's great to see so many Hammels in one room at the same time. Could make this a family reunion, and hey, let's do this more often. I also want to recognize dear Rotarian Leon Butler's with us today. Leon, you may remember, holds the record for perfect attendance. So it's so great. He's usually watching us via Zoom, but it's so great to have him in the room today. All of our guests, thank you for being here. We know for a fact that you're going to love this program, and we hope that you will come and join us again often. Fellow Rotarians, please help me welcome our guests. I think many of you know that the historic Horn Farm Center suffered a devastating fire on Monday night, destroying a barn that is used for their offices, their main office building. If you'd like to help, they do have an immediate need of office space for their 6 employees. Mobile office units that can be brought on site are preferable, but if anyone has any temporary office space they'd be willing to offer the center, they would be very grateful. They also have a link to their website in case you're interested in making a donation to them in their as they're recovering from this. Rotarian and Executive Director Alexis Campbell has expressed her appreciation for the outpouring of support and well wishes. The IDEA committee will meet on Monday, November 1st at 8 a.m. via Zoom. The Communications Committee will meet on Tuesday, November 2nd at 4 p.m. for a hybrid meeting at the First Post and via Zoom. The Membership Committee will meet on Wednesday, November 3rd at 1:20 immediately following our meeting here at the club. If you have any ideas for programs, the Program Committee will be meeting in early December. Kindly send your ideas to past President Mike Summers. We received a very nice thank you letter from the Rotary Club of Beaumont, Texas for our club's $11,000 donation to their disaster relief efforts. And the letter reads, last March, my friend Bert Oberdick sent a very generous check and kind letter to the Rotary Club of Beaumont on behalf of your club to aid us in disaster relief following a winter weather disaster that hit most of Texas. While we're accustomed to hurricanes in the summer months, we are ill prepared for the likes of winter weather that you know how to take in stride. I should not have been, but was surprised when we received the amazingly generous check from the Rotary Club of York. You were so generous and gave us tremendous help after the devastation brought on by flooding in our region associated with Hurricane Harvey in 2017. Who could have imagined that you would do so again? In the letter, Bert thanked us for being York Rotary's feet on the ground in Beaumont to help the area recover. We took that as a serious challenge and found 3 agencies which help those in need and with which we have a close association. We used the funds to support their efforts to provide people with water and pantry items and hot meals. Even more importantly, we found places where we could serve as people of action by lacing up our boots, rolling up our sleeves, and getting to work. When all the projects were completed, we set the well-worn boots out. They've done their job, as have we. Moreover, please know the York, PA Rotary Club has demonstrated leading by example. Because of your generosity, our club approaches giving to other clubs in areas of disasters much differently and much more generously than we ever did before. In Rotary service, Jackie Chapman, Executive Director, Rotary Club of Beaumont. Give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you for your generosity. That is a great example of service above self and Rotary in action. And now for our member moment. Jen May joined Rotary in 2019. Past President Di Hershey was her proposer. Jen had heard of Rotary, but wasn't sure what it was about until Di's invitation, which gave her a chance to learn about our committees and the work we do. She thought it was a perfect way to get involved in the community. She loved how welcoming Rotarians were and the personal invitations to join their committees. She's active with Preserve Planet Earth and has even engaged one of her sons to help with tree planting. She's also involved with the Lend a Hand Committee and is co-chair of the IDEA Committee. She's been interested in social justice for decades. The issues that she's passionate about are due to experiences that she or a family member or a friend have gone through. For her, it has been a personal journey. Jen grew up in York and dated her future husband in high school. In fact, they double dated with her husband's best friend, Rotarian Judd Lando. Today, Judd's son is very close friends with Jen and Kevin's sons. Jen attended Westchester University for undergrad and went on to earn her master's and doctorate in educational leadership. To give you a glimpse of Jen's determination and resolve, she did her doctoral dissertation as a young mother with a 17-month and a 5-week-old at home. Jen and her husband moved back to York in 2004 to be closer to family, and she commuted to Reading for work until it became more complicated with 3 young children. Jen's mom is an active member of OLLI, Osher Lifelong Learning Institute at Penn State York. a membership-based, volunteer-driven organization offering community members aged 50 years and better the opportunity to learn, explore, and connect through education and social enrichment. Jen saw a posting for a new director of OLLI, and she applied and was offered the job. This is where she oversees 5 committees of 25 volunteers, 2 full-time staff, and I think there are many Rotarians who are actually members of OLLI. It's a great organization. Jen is the youngest in her family with 3 older sisters who are all very close and enjoy time together with their families at the beach every summer in Stone Harbor. She's an avid runner, logging in 20 miles every week. And as a morning person, she loves to get her runs in early before starting her day. Jen is a thoughtful leader, dedicated to creating positive and lasting change in our club and our community. She's striving to make the Rotary Club of York more diverse, but more importantly, to open the hearts and minds of Rotarians by hearing about lived experiences of marginalized individuals. Courageous conversations are the first baby steps on this pathway. Well done, Jen. Thank you. And now Chair of the Membership Committee, Phil Woods, has an Each One Bring One challenge announcement.
In my interactions with Al Sykes, he said, savor these moments at the podium. So, okay. Good afternoon. It's no secret that our club today is not at the membership level it's been just a few years ago. Unfortunately, we've experienced events out of our control, certainly COVID, one of those events that caused, for various reasons, members to resign from our club. Some things were in our control. Just a few years ago, we let Josh George be president of our club for the entire year before COVID. And you'd think past chair of the membership committee, he'd have a better grasp on retention, but it is what it is. And as I sat across from him on the table, I realized there's 3 empty seats in between us. So kind of symbolic. All kidding aside, we're not the only club to lose members over this past year and a half. So with that at your table, you'll see an Each One Bring One table tent. Rotary International has come up with an initiative to bring and invite guests and to become members of Rotary through the end of 2022. So this is not a sprint. This is a longer race, the 20 miles Jen runs. It's more of that 20-mile episode. So how can we do that? If we look up here to the slides, first, we want to think who would be a great Rotarian. Think about your colleagues, your friends, fellow board members, adult children who still reside in the area. Think about who can be a great Rotarian. Next, we want to invite them to a meeting in November. In November, there's incentive. At the end of the month, every guest you bring will get 1 entry into a drawing. We'll throw some gift certificates out there to 3 individuals at the end of November. So again, invite guests. Follow up on their readiness to apply. When you think about those potential great Rotarians, bring them to a meeting. We have to follow up. If you don't feel comfortable following up, making that direct ask, reach out to the membership committee. We have great individuals who are willing to ask, willing to answer questions, and if anything else, we'll send them to Lynn. Finally, show of hands. Raise your hand, please, if you were proposed by another Rotarian to be a member of this club. So that's what has to happen. You have to propose someone so that they can become a member. So that's the final step. Last week, I'll end with this. Last week, Bill Hartman used some acronyms. So he used OTR. I'm going to play on that. With that, membership committee wants you and ask for your help to get prospective members OTR on the road to becoming an OTR, outstanding true Rotarian. So there you go, Bill. We added the OTR. Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing anywhere between 300 and 400 guests in November with your help. Thank you.
And Phil will be at the door as you exit with applications for all of you who are visiting today. So just be prepared for that. And now Chris Toff will speak to us about courageous conversations.
Thank you, President Jackie. Before I start, I want to let you know, before hearing that Jen did her PhD with 2 children at home, I thought the height of being busy was my senior year of college, carrying 5 classes and having to make sure that 3 different booze cruises went off okay. So I've been put in my place now as far as that's concerned. Fellow Rotarians, in my time here at the club, I've noticed that we all like to talk a good bit, and some of us a heck of a lot more than others. We have all types of conversations, and some of them are not necessarily the ones that we want to have, but need to have in order to make improvements, educate, or prepare for the future. We have conversations that give a little bit of a punch to the gut. Like some of us in this room, we've had to probably let somebody go from a job or been let go from a job. The other thing too is I'm sure that most of us here have been involved in a conversation where something was said along the lines of, it's not me, it's you. That's always usually a difficult conversation to have as well. There are also some conversations that some sense of ew or yuck comes along with, generally from your children or the child you're speaking to. There's the discussion with kids that when we talk to them about changes to their body, where they go, oh my God, does that really happen? And that's at the start of puberty. And then we also have conversations with them that's infinitely more uncomfortable for children and probably for a lot of adults, where we talk about sex, safe sex, and all things birds and the bees. I experienced my own type of uncomfortable conversation. Just a few months after graduating from college, while I was enjoying a postgraduate summer of beach volleyball and a hefty $200 a week worth of refereeing money, living rent-free in my parents' house, I was faced with a difficult talk with my father that focused on his vision for my future being very different from mine. I don't know if you guys can see that picture, but I think it speaks for itself when you see that there are a lot of possessions put at the curb telling you that it's time to move out. Now, with all of that being said, progress comes from being uncomfortable. In our position as Rotarians serving the people of York, we should always be striving for progress, improvement, and doing the right thing. Getting in touch with what is outside of our comfort zone will propel us to a different level as a club. In the long list of meetings, phone calls, presentations, and anecdotes regarding other clubs and their efforts to get uncomfortable and to make progress in areas of inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility, the Rotary Club of York has a leg up at the moment. We need to continue taking steps to move forward, and I'm here to announce that next step right now. As a club, we will be taking part in a courageous conversation. This conversation is set up for the purpose of strengthening our club, setting us up in a good way for the future, and to foster learning and understanding on high priority topics. These conversations are going to push people into places where they will not feel entirely comfortable. But rest assured, each session is set up to be a safe space for people to speak, and where being respectful is a primary expectation. By sharing our thoughts and our collective experiences, we hope to expand our club's understanding, which in turn will put us in a position to better serve our community, thus doing more to provide service above self. As a committee, all of us on the IDEA committee have decided to start off with a very, very simple topic for the initial courageous conversation. A topic that isn't fueled by any political views. It's not fueled by any history or anything along those lines. It's a topic of race. We're going to start off very simple there. A couple of things about that. These discussions are going to start off to give you an idea of kind of how they break down. Discussion on your awareness, your experience, the impact on your life, and your thoughts about race. And then the back end of these conversations are going to focus on how our club can change to be more representative of the community that we serve. A couple of questions that you may have at this point. When are these conversations going to take place? Well, the week of November 8th is the simple answer. We will have 5 sessions during that week, 1 each day of the week. So they should be able to fit into all of your schedules. How do you take part? This is going to be the interesting part of this whole thing. Right around now, you should all be receiving an email. So if you do have devices and want to check to make sure it went out, and if it didn't, look at Lynn. You should be receiving an email with a link to a sign up genius for the sessions that are being offered. In addition to the sign up genius, if technology is a little bit too much for you, you can also reach out to Renee with your choice of meeting that you'd like to attend. The sessions have been spread throughout the week at different times, in different venues, in person and in Zoom, all in the hopes that you will be able to attend one that fits your schedule and your preference to either be in the same room with people or to keep your distance. Each of these sessions will have just 8 participants, not including the idea moderator and note taker. Just so you know, for safety's sake on your part, the note taker is only taking notes on the part that looks towards the future and strategies we can have, nothing that's said prior to that. And our idea committee moderators are myself, Cal Weary, and the underachiever Jen May. We want to keep these groups fairly small to foster an environment that does not stifle any participation and gives everyone opportunity for a fair share of the 90 minutes allotted for the conversation. Having given you the information on who, what, where, and how, I must now address the why. The why is so that we stay relevant as a club. The why is so that we can best address the needs of the community that we serve. The why is to build our individual levels of knowledge and understanding. That is why the why is because as Rotarians, with a dedication to service above self and the current climate that we live in, a courageous conversation on race and future action steps to improve our club, it is not just something that we should do or need to do, but something that as a group that is guided by a 4-way test, we are obligated to do. I look forward to 100% of the slots in these courageous conversations being filled. I want you all to be courageous. The idea committee, along with a community that will improve from our actions as a Rotary Club, thank you for your time and participation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris, and members of the IDEA committee. I hope you will seriously consider joining me in signing up for one of the courageous conversation slots. And I believe if we have a lot of members who want to take part in it, they'll probably open up additional slots as well in the coming weeks. So please give that careful consideration. I hope you'll join me. And now, past President Fred Fay will introduce today's program.
President Jackie, Rotarians, and guests. Our speaker was born in 1974, just 10 months after I began my own career at North Metal. In 2010, Jeff took over as the 44th generation leader of all 3 of our family chemical corporations, North Metal, North Industrial, and Compound Technology. Like his uncles before him, Jeff worked several high school summers at the family chemical works, doing all sorts of odd jobs that none of the regular employees wanted to do. And like all his uncles, when Jeff went off to college, he vowed never to return to York, much less work for the family business. Jeff studied chemical engineering for 2 years at West Virginia University, partying more than studying, and then transferred to the business school, graduating in May of 1997. Now, my father did not offer me a job in the family business until 2 years after I had settled into a good job far away. So I resolved to get to Jeff early before I lost him. Right after his graduation, I offered him a job at the lowest rung on our management ladder and at the lowest salary, although I did not put it that way to him, just as I had started 24 years earlier. It was left up to Jeff to figure out how to distinguish himself and where he might be able to contribute the most to the company. To his great credit, Jeff recognized what was at stake and accepted my challenge. Of course, I left little to chance and deliberately placed Jeff under the most challenging and demanding supervisor available. Jeff worked at every job in the factory and then moved to the quality control laboratory and eventually to the office. I also insisted that Jeff spend a year OTR traveling to visit our customers so that he could learn firsthand what they liked and did not like about our products and service. Not Jeff's favorite job, to say the least, but he stuck it out. Jeff was in training for 13 years, exactly the same amount of time that I had worked for my father and that my father had worked for his father-in-law before succeeding to the top job. Among his many accomplishments at North Metal, the most important was his success in raising our company's recovery rate from the processing of our molybdenum ore to 98% from 95%. To help you to appreciate the significance of that extra 3% of recovered molybdenum, the cost of our molybdenum ore at its peak in June of 2005 was over $6 million in that 1 month. A savings of $180,000 in a single month. That sounds a little bit more impressive than 3% recovery, doesn't it? And if that were not enough, Jeff also found a market for the waste from our operations, selling it as a source of micronutrients rather than paying to have it landfilled. Since taking over as president, Jeff has focused on replacing much of the aging equipment and many of the aging employees as well, while unifying the rest of the workforce and boosting morale during COVID. He has also put more energy into greater involvement in his community, encouraging his management team to do the same. As a member of this club, he has been active on the PPE committee and the Arc of York and in the annual fundraiser. He currently serves on the boards of the Junior Achievement, the Arc of York County, and the Margaret Mao Home Foundation, and recently stepped down from the board of Olivia's House. All of this while maintaining a vibrant 25-year marriage, raising 3 great kids, supporting the West Virginia University football program, and becoming an outdoor recreation juggernaut. Like his great-grandfather North, Jeff enjoys tinkering, and he holds a United States patent for one of his inventions. Would you please welcome Jeffrey Scott Hammel?
Thank you, Fred. Wow, talk about being outside your comfort zone. Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians, guests, family, friends. If you know me at all, you know I'm not much of a talker. I'm more of a man of action. Fortunately, we've been working on some marketing pieces, videos and the like to use on our website to show our customers, suppliers, and so forth. Thanks to Scott, wherever Scott's at, there he is, and Heather for quickly getting a video put together in time for this presentation, which gives some great insight into the history of North Metal and some of the challenges and opportunities faced by each generation. After the video, with the little time that I will have left, I will give you my insight into the foundations of what has empowered the North Chemical companies to survive and thrive through 4 generations and counting, maybe, of family ownership and management. So stay tuned.
As we enter North Metal and Chemical's 100-year anniversary, let's take a look back at how we got here. Dr. Henry Briggs North was born in 1879 in Janesville, Wisconsin, a town southeast of Madison, which would be where he later received his bachelor's and master's degrees at the University of Wisconsin. He then continued to teach at the university until leaving for Europe to both study and teach at the Swiss Polytechnical Institute in 1907, and then at the University of Paris, receiving his doctorate in chemistry in 1909. While in Paris, Dr. North married fellow Wisconsin native Harriet Clark. The couple returned to America in 1909, where Henry taught at Rutgers University through most of the 1910s. And there they had their only child, a daughter named Helen, in 1914, just as World War I began back in Europe. At 14 years old, young North was already growing a collection of mineral samples, and this collection eventually grew to several thousand specimens from throughout the world. Known to his family, friends, students, and employees as HB or Doc, never Henry or Hank, his lifelong mineralogy hobby propelled him towards practical development of minerals and was a key force in moving his family to York, Pennsylvania in 1917. HB was offered a contract with York Metal Alloys Company, where his position was to set up a research lab and develop tungsten powder production techniques to support war contracts. He was given a $5,000 annual salary in 1917 and then $6,000 in 1918, which equates to $112,000 and $134,000 in 2021 dollars. As part of the contract, Dr. North had negotiated a guarantee of 1 year notice to his termination. The Spanish flu and the end of the war had slowed alloy demand by the end of 1918. When York Metal Alloys Company was purchased by Alloys Corporation, the new company gave HB a notice of termination on December 31st, 1920, stating he would finish employment March 15th of the coming year. Around this same time, HB found York to be plentiful of limonite pseudomorphs after marcasite, a mineral only known to be available in 2 places in the U.S. and was often called a prophecy stone. Doc used this local mineral to trade with other collectors throughout the country. It took until April 1922 for Doc to get his full year's payment with help of the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania. But by that time, North Metal and Chemical had already become incorporated on the 600 block of York's East Mason Alley. North Metal and Chemical Company was created for the manufacture of tungsten and molybdenum compounds, along with other rare elements. Initially, these quantities were very small, suitable for university lab work, but with imagination and knowledge, North created processes to create and refine 52 different compounds the first 15 years of business. While the average sale to customers was less than 10 pounds, the quality of these products was enough to create a foundation for the business. It should be pointed out that in 1921 there was virtually no molybdenum being mined in the United States, making the source raw material strictly by import. So great effort was put into getting raw materials and manufacturing these compounds on a small scale. It was only in 1915 that a process had been developed to separate molybdenum from the sulfur in molybdenite. And World War I revealed molybdenum hardened steel as an important new product. Good fortune brought North Metal and Chemical Company into the market at the same time that the first domestic molybdenum became available. The Climax molybdenum mine began production in Colorado and grew to become the world's largest underground mining operation. This timing helped position North for some reliable growth. But Henry North was not a savvy business manager or salesman. He was a mineralogist and a chemist that loved to tinker. He may have been too principled to run a business at that time. For instance, he refused to continue selling to DuPont Chemical after DuPont had failed to stick to the agreed 30-day payment terms. Firing a customer, even a huge customer, over principles was never second-guessed by HB. North never felt the need to do any marketing. he gained business through the publication of his many research articles in leading chemistry periodicals. Operating out of a lab constructed in an abandoned shop for Conestoga wagon assembly, Dr. North invented many useful items, like a perfumed mothicide for your closet that protected your clothes, as well as some industrial, automotive, and household cleaners. Equivalents to today's Mr. Clean, Windex, and Tide products prior to any national brand availability. Dr. North had created many great processes and products, but he needed help in creating a lasting business model. Though the Norths didn't have a son, their daughter Helen married a mechanical engineer out of Cornell, Frederick Clifford Fay, in 1937. Having worked in air conditioning design sales for the predecessor of York International, Fred joined North Metal and Chemical Company and began managing business affairs for the company while receiving daily evening tutelage in chemistry after hours. Doc demanded that his son-in-law master chemistry basics before naming him company director. For a full year, Fred endured evening lessons, and then he was able to begin work on expanding the facility. Fred looked to turn the small metal compounder into a large-scale manufacturing facility to enable the required large volumes of sales to large companies. He installed blast furnaces for smelting operations. These furnaces were used to make tungstic acid and provide raw material for those with war contracts to make planes, tanks, and munitions. Pre-World War II business revolved around producing tungstic acid. After the mid-40s, the tungsten business seemed to all but disappear. Luckily, the 50s brought a color printing boom, and molybdenum was used for printing inks, including the US 3-cent stamp, a life-saving sector of the North business. Another key to stability was that North Metal and Chemical had become a distributor of general chemicals to the local area since the mid-1920s. Formerly spun off as North Chemical Company and later North Industrial Chemicals Incorporated, the distribution company was able to keep the feast and famine aspects of manufacturing steadied. This partnership of companies sharing a campus has been key to North Metal and Chemical's long run. During the 60s and 70s, Molly Orange, a molybdenum-based pigment that acts as both corrosion inhibitor and bright orange colors for paints and primers, was a key consumer of sodium molybdate. As Fred Fay, known for his authoritarian management style, turned 65 years old, he found himself in a dilemma. Markets were changing, and he was finding that he was rapidly losing energy to push North Metal and Chemical in a new direction. He thought of selling the company outright, as his sons and daughter were off following their own interests. There was William North Fay, John Clark Fay, Frederick Clifford Fay II, and Helen Fay, who went by Terry. His eldest son, William, was groomed to work for the family company, obtaining a chemical engineering degree, but was engaged in missionary work in Indonesia. The second eldest, John, had been a freedom rider. Embracing the hippie culture throughout the 60s, was currently a Jesuit missionary on a Sioux reservation in North Dakota. Somehow he was able to convince his third son, Fred Jr., to leave his business consulting job in New York to join the family company, with only a 50% reduction in salary. The federal EPA moved to eliminate chrome from use as a water and steam treatment corrosion inhibitor. Many may be familiar with this through the Aaron Brockovich movie. The film doesn't tell that sodium molybdate was the safe, cost-effective replacement for chrome. However, when this occurred, a North salesman was necessary to get the word out to this market. The elder Fred sent his son out to perform presentations at trade shows and conferences throughout the United States. While the travel of building this market of small water treatment businesses, Fred Jr. was also able to fit in stops to introduce many universities to the use of sodium molybdate as a key micronutrient for many crops, but particularly soybeans and other legumes. Small water treatment companies and small fertilizer producers became North's prime customer base. By 1980, Fred Fay Sr. had realized his goal of bringing all of his children back to York. Eldest son William joined for a year in 1977 to help the company transition for computerization, and soon after returned permanently as vice president, managing many aspects of the business that were not related to sales. And second son John came back to work in shipping and receiving, as well as product manufacturing. Fred was even able to hire his son-in-law Mike Hammel after a career as an Air Force pilot and officer to manage purchasing operations. When Fred Fay Sr. passed while on vacation in 1986, he had left no indication of a chosen successor. At this time, North Metal and Chemical was very well capitalized, so there was little concern over immediate finances. With 3 sons and a son-in-law working in the companies, Fred Sr., in his will, left the decision to York Bank and Trust as the trustee. William managed the renovation and reconstruction projects. A 2-story steel insulated cinder block and concrete production facility was built around the original wooden building. This production area had an elaborate design employed to assure that any overflows or spills were fully contained and reprocessed by employing a complete drain system and dual 2,000-gallon retaining pits. Second-floor tank storage provided the opportunity to gravity feed liquid products to the drying systems and for bulk tanker filling. William also oversaw warehouse expansion of both North companies, allowing for increased inventory. This additional space allowed North Metal and Chemical to begin stocking imported container loads of other industrial water treatment products, establishing North as a one-stop supplier for many key ingredients for independent boiler treatment companies. In 1996, purchasing director Mike Hammel's son and Fay brothers' nephew, Jeff Hammel, joined the company with his University of West Virginia accounting degree and a slew of additional chemistry coursework. Like his uncles and female cousins, Jeff had worked summers in the company throughout schooling, getting all of the menial and unsavory jobs that full-time skilled staff wanted to pass off. For some in the family, these unsavory jobs were backbreaking, dirty, and plain old nasty. Now that Jeff had finished school and committed to the family business, he was mentored by Charlie Enjard, an extremely talented production manager whose expertise in filtration massively improved the manufacturing quality. Jeff worked many long hours both in the factory and in the office. He even spent a year as a traveling sales rep while running the operations. Knowing every facet of North Metal and Chemical Company, Jeff took ownership from his retiring uncles in 2010. Prior to taking ownership, Jeff handpicked 2 experienced managers, Dave Fitzgerald and Bill Hunter, to lead daily operations of the 2 companies. The combined recent success of both operations is unparalleled, allowing an employee profit-sharing program to extend the family culture to every North employee. Dr. H.B. North passed away in 1956 at the age of 77. But what happened to his vast mineral collection? While still alive, H.B. turned down an offer from the Smithsonian Institute for it, hoping that a family member would carry on the hobby. A decade after his death, his wife donated the collection to York College, then York Junior College, where it still resides today. New equipment, new markets, and a new generation of employees at North Metal and Chemical have supplanted the old. But the family values are stronger than ever as we enter our 100th year. There's a reason that there are very few companies that can make it for 4 or 5 generations. Luckily, we've always been able to focus on our commitment to our customers' needs. It takes great relationships to make sure you have the necessary inventory that you need to operate in today's market. Having our 100-year foundation, we have a great opportunity to reach out to other small companies all over the continent, and maybe they will have the chance to make it 100 years also.
The foundation that North Metal Chemical Company was founded on was as a small family-owned and operated chemical manufacturer in York, PA, helping to supply other small local manufacturing companies with the materials that they needed to be successful. While the family has grown and transitioned over the past 100 years, the business has done the same, but remains true to its roots, which means not being greedy, number one. As the saying goes, pigs get fed or fat, hogs get slaughtered. If you try to grow your business too big or too fast, or if you try to gouge your customers or rip off your suppliers, you might win some, but eventually you're going to get slaughtered and you won't last 100 years. Plus, you'll fail the Rotary's four-way test. Another foundation that our company was built on is being an active part of a very strong community. We have the best lawyers and accountants, bankers and investors, and true business-minded people right here in little old York. There's no better example of that than this Rotary Club. A huge thanks go to York Water Company for not only supplying us with fresh, clean drinking water, but they give us an advantage over Chinese manufacturers that have impurities in their product from their water. I certainly wouldn't be here where I am today without the help of people like Frank Countess, who rewrote our shareholders agreements so that we could transition to the fourth generation while including some non-family ownership, which are down here today. And we can manage and prepare for a potential fifth generation. And a big debt of gratitude goes to Martin and Michelle Weiss for recommending I hire Dave Fitzgerald a number of years ago. Dave is one of my partners and runs all the day-to-day crap at North Metal Chemicals. Another big thanks goes to my uncles, Bill and Fred Fay, for hiring Bill Hunter, which led to Bill's brother, Bob Hunter. Together, they run the day-to-day of North Industrial Chemicals, and they are both partners in the business as well. Obviously, our employees are pulled from the community, and we have smarter, harder working people than we could get just about anywhere else. Last but certainly not least, it takes a foundation of a strong family to be able to survive any generation of family control of a business, let alone 4 generations. I'm not going to stand up here and air all of my family's dirty laundry, but when people care about their business, they tend to have very strong emotions and opinions on how things should be done, which oftentimes conflicts with other family members. My grandfather, Fred Fay I, was very fortunate. He was able to get all 4 of his children back to York from all over the world to take part in the family business. A family company can unite a family, but could just as easily tear it apart. I was very fortunate to learn strong family values from my parents, Mike and Terry Hammel, and to learn strong corporate values from my uncles, Bill, John, and even Fred. And to have the support of and inspiration from my wife, Stacy, and the rest of my family and community. Without all of this, I could never be successful in business or anything else in life for that matter. And we probably have time for a few questions, or I could share a couple anecdotes. It's up to you. So anybody have any questions? I can't see you in the back. Is that JT? No?
So Jeff,
Yeah.
The shout out of support from York Water Company. Can you share with all of us how your unrelenting commitment to your clients, to your customers, to the ones that you provide your chemicals, and your unfallible commitment to making sure that delivery of that product to your most important customers, how does that distinguish you from all the other suppliers out there in the chemical space?
Well, JT, I think you just said it best. I don't know if I can repeat all that, but yeah, that basically large companies aren't really concerned about small manufacturers and making sure that they have products that they need when they need them. You know, we're here for the small guy. We're looking out for them. We've been a real champion for getting the small manufacturing companies chemicals where a lot of these big guys can't get the same. The question was, what products might be able to be used as household products? And the short answer is pretty much everything we sell goes into some form of household product. We're not really interested in selling direct to consumers. We like to sell to businesses that formulate those products and put them on the shelf. Like what? Well, bleach, sodium hypochlorite would be one. Ammonia, there's just a whole host of pretty much everything we have. So sodium hydroxide, I could keep going, but we had a question over here from Aaron.
Yeah, I think you're one of the unrecognized gems in New York City, and having your history to speak for so long, as of today, what do you see as being a benefit operating in the city, and what do you see as being the biggest challenge operating in the city?
Well, the benefit is we're fairly close to our customers. We're close to 83. We can get our trucks out down to Maryland or, wherever fairly quickly. Disadvantages, there are definitely some unique situations that we have run up against. We're right next to a church, and at one point in time, they didn't want us to use our dock anymore because they were interested in selling their church to us. So just situations like that we run into being in the city, so close to other businesses and people around. Chris.
With a lot of the talk right now as far as supply chain being an issue, has this become an advantage for you or a disadvantage? I've heard you mention that, the water company giving you a much more superior product than your Chinese counterparts. Are you in a better spot now for what you do because of the supply issues?
We are in a better spot. The question was, are we in a better spot given the current supply chain upheaval, what's going on? And we are in a better spot in a lot of ways. It's been really hectic, and it's been trying for all my employees to try to get product and get it in and out the door as soon as we get it, really. But yeah, we've had an advantage of not being shy about paying the additional freight that we have to from China, which has skyrocketed from, I don't know what it was years ago, but it's $20-some thousand or so to get a container over here from China now, which is, a lot of companies were hesitant to pay that because they're afraid that the prices are just going to plummet at some point. And we were able to bring in a lot of materials that other companies weren't stocking up on. So that's been an advantage for sure. Kelly, did you have a question? Okay, great. Well, to get all the yes, the question was, what is the goal for the next step in the company? And really the goal is to get all the equipment that I've purchased over the last few years, get that all up and running and ironed out, and then start thinking about the 5th generation. And if there's interest from my kids or my nieces and nephews and second cousins or whatnot, and hopefully we can get some fresh blood in there to take over from me, because in a few years I'm not going to want to spend more money into the business, or I'm going to look to just coast. So hopefully we can get that 5th generation in sooner or later. Do we have time for any other questions, or is that's it? We do? Okay. Anybody else in the back there? That's a great question. The question was stated that OSHA is probably a frequent visitor to us, and how do we manage the various challenges of regulation and the like, safety, and quite frankly, OSHA has only visited us once since I've been involved in the company. And that was because they saw it's public information that we handle hexavalent chrome in some of our blends, which is a fairly nasty chemical. And they needed to come in and test to make sure that we're using all the right respirators and scrubbers and things to keep the air clean and free from hexavalent chrome, which is known to cause cancer. And that's been the only visit, and we were successful in facing that challenge. Quite frankly, OSHA and EPA, they're really here to help us. They give us guidelines. They've been a huge help. Sometimes they can be a pain in the butt, but really we just follow the rules and we're good. Over here. The question was, are we the largest supplier or manufacturer of moly disulfide? And actually, we don't handle moly disulfide at all. That's a more down or upstream product. That's molybdenite is mined out of the ground as moly sulfide, and then is roasted and processed into molybdenum trioxide, which is our raw material for making sodium molybdate. We are one of the largest, if not the largest, supplier of sodium molybdate in the United States. But yeah. Anybody else? Is that all we got time for?
Thank you, Jeff. I think that was the most interesting science class I've ever had the pleasure of sitting in on. Great family history too. What a wonderful heritage. What a wonderful legacy. This was just a really tremendous overview of all that your company has done over the generations. And we thank you too, that you're here, that you're staying here. And we thank you for your generous philanthropy for our community as well. So in honor of Jeff's program today, he signed the book plate, The Oldest Student, How Mary Walker Learned to Read by Rita Lorraine Hubbard, and we'll present this to the Logos Academy. Next week, did you know that 50 early learning centers in York County permanently closed due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and that over half of York's 3- and 4-year-olds are not enrolled in early childhood education? Join us for a presentation by Brian Grimm, President and CEO of York Day Nursery, to explain how York Day Nursery is rising up to meet the challenges and opportunities presented by our current childcare crisis, including their efforts to expand access to quality early childhood education for students in York County. And in closing, our quote today is from Ralph, I love that. Ralph Waldo Emerson. You cannot do a kindness too soon, for you'll never know how soon it will be too late. Rotarians, I hope you have a great rest of your week. This meeting is adjourned.